And I think one of the things that we need to remember about burnout is it is quite different from stress, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when people are overstressed and they're in that place of feeling inefficient, they're talking about how they have too much. So I've got too much work, I've got too much to do, everything just feels too much, right? They're going to overwhelm. So that's those linguistic markers, they're your stress moments.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're hearing someone talking about how they don't have enough, I just don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough resources to get my job done effectively, that's when we're edging towards burnout.
Welcome to the Inner Game of Change, the podcast where we explore the unseen forces that shape how we lead, adapt, and thrive in the face of change and transformation. I am your host, Ali Jama. Today I'm joined by Bronwyn Penhaligon, a strategic psychotherapist who helps people and teams get unstuck by tackling the emotional loops and environmental triggers that hold them back. In this conversation, we unpack burnout, how it is different from stress, why it is rising, and what both leaders and individuals can do to stop normalizing overwhelm. We also explore the deep connection between mindset, environment, and change readiness. And then we zoom out. We talk about the psychological impact of artificial intelligence, not just what it does, but how it is quietly reshaping how we think, connect, reflect, and how we relate to ourselves. So whether you are managing change, leading a team, or just navigating your own mental patterns, this episode has something for you. I am grateful to have Bronwyn chatting with me today. Well, Bronwyn, thank you so much for joining me in the Inner Game of Change podcast. I am eternally grateful for your time.
Pleasure to be here with you.
A psychotherapist, what do you do?
So strategic psychotherapy is a unique way of engaging with people that is a very proactive and action-based way of helping people essentially get unstuck. So the way that I work with people is by looking more at where are you now, and then where do you want to be? So it's a fusion of a coaching modality, but also underpinned with the therapeutic intent. Because typically the people that come to me are finding themselves in a position that they probably don't want to be, and there's a version of themselves they'd like to move towards.
Bronwyn, what are the main patterns you've seen that hold us back from going from A to B?
Look, it's pretty much dependent on the circumstantial situation, so the context of what's going on, the environment that we're in, because there tends to be some levers we can pull, some buttons we can push that, will move the dial a fair bit. So looking at the environmental pieces is typically the first place that I start. Because let's face it, it's really difficult to grow a beautiful plant if it's in soil that just doesn't have the right pH for it, or it's not getting enough sunlight, or there's too much liquid in the air for it. So it's about looking at, okay, environmentally, what's going on? And then we move to the mindset. So then what is the stuff you're telling yourself? What are the beliefs you're holding on to? What are the behavior patterns that you're falling into that are keeping you where you are? So from that perspective, it is a dual prong approach. And what I tend to notice pops up most frequently are things around procrastination, task avoidance, conflict, interpersonal challenges, and those kinds of things. They tend to be the impetus, I suppose, or the tells that something's not quite right.
I'd like you to go deeper into the concept of the environment, Bronwyn. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example, a personal example, and this may not apply to a lot of people, but my son is now close to 16, and he was, in his primary school, he was very, open, very confident. Mm-hmm. And the moment he stepped into high school, he's gone the opposite way. And I strongly believe I haven't changed. My context has not changed. Could that be the environment, or is it an environment and what he's going through as well? But if you elevate this conversation, it's And personally, I am a strong believer that the environment does have a major impact on people. And obviously, I apply that in the workplace predominantly. So just talk to me about the environment.
Yeah, I guess to touch on that for a second before we move into your example, I also work in the workplace environment. That's the sweet spot. So the workplace anxiety is the area that I choose to specialize in. But I guess as it relates to the example you're explaining with your son, you're moving from primary to high school, now 16. I mean, there's a lot that goes on in that whole package, right? I mean, twofold. One, new school, new friendship group, new interests. But also, as we know, on a physiological perspective, there's also a whole surge of testosterone that comes into effect. And then as young men start to move towards those later stages of adolescence, there's that questioning around masculinity. Who do I want to be? What kind of man do I want to be? Which parts of my own masculinity role modeling do I take with me? Which ones do I actively reject? And which other parts do I try on and experiment with? So from that perspective, there is really quite a lot going on for him. And yes, to your point, the other, I guess, cultural norms that are happening in the school, what's going on there for the other boys in the group, the teaching style and, the role modeling that's happening there would absolutely be having an impact. Just like we see in the workplace that the leadership style and their way of being, then influences the people on the floor.
There's a lot of talk around the idea of a burnout in the workplace. I mean, this is not going to go away. There's always going to be a level of burnout. Who is responsible for it? Is it the employer? Is it the employee? Is it the environment? Is it, is it a combination of all of the above?
Yeah, look, I've been spending quite a lot of time with people recently, actually, in the burnout phase, when they're either recognizing that that's the path they're going down, or they have found themselves there completely destroyed at the end of the road and trying desperately to, pick themselves back up again. And I think one of the things that we need to remember about burnout is it is quite different from stress, right? So when people are overstressed and they're in that place of feeling inefficient, they're talking about how they have too much. So I've got too much work, I've got too much to do, everything just feels too much, right? They go into overwhelm. So that's those linguistic markers, they're your stress moments. But if you're hearing someone talking about how they don't have enough, I just don't have enough time, I don't have enough energy, I don't have enough resources to get my job done effectively, that's when we're edging towards burnout. Because the difference here is when you're in that stress zone and the feeling of overwhelm, you're still actively in relationship to what's happening. Yes. Whereas when you're in burnout, it's like you're depleted, you've given up, you've surrendered to it, and you're in that space of everything is just too much and I can't cope anymore. So listening for those linguistic markers is a good way for businesses and people in teams to be able to just listen out for, is my teammate or my employee stressed, or are they actually burned out? And when it comes to dealing with this burnout, where does it come from? How does it happen? And how do we get there? Well, I'm of the perspective that it takes a whole team to make this happen, right? Just like every person is involved to get an AFL team to the grand final, from the sponsors through to the groundsmen, through to the players and the coaches. It's the same as when you've got people that are burned out and struggling, right?
Yes.
Societal perspective, we still glorify the grind. We still brag about how little sleep we're getting and how we're crazy busy and we've got so much on. And that seems to be a badge of honor, right? And then further, the step down from that, each business that people are working for are constantly looking for growth. There's that capitalism piece that comes into play here, that it's our target for next year is this year plus 20%, give or take. So there's this constant need to be doing more. In addition to that, there's also a desire to, be profitable and to give solid profits, growing profits, back to the shareholders, if that's indeed a thing, or the owners. and to be reinvesting in the business. So to do that, then you start seeing redundancies and other kinds of levers that are being pulled, buttons that are pushed to try and optimize the profit margin. So what happens? Well, then we've got an environment where people are in workspaces where they're being asked to do more with less.
Yes.
And then you overlay that with, the cost of living crisis that we're in. The fact that now you can't buy bananas for less than $4 a kilo, right? I think mandarins are on special right now for $3.80. Like it is really, really genuinely difficult. So all of these things combine to a feeling of absolute uncertainty in the individual, an environmental of chronic systemic stress and pressure. And then, they find themselves in these positions where if they don't continue to extend themselves outside of what is comfortable and as per their KPIs and the contract they signed, well, maybe then they're at risk of livelihood. Therefore, ergo, what choice do they have, right? Mm-hmm. So when you think of it from the helicopter view, it's kind of a gloomy picture. But if you think of it on the ground, what I work with my clients on when they are in these places of stress and burnout and overwhelm is really bringing it back to the core of, well, me as an individual, what do I have control over here? I can't do anything about who got elected. I can't do anything about what may or may not be happening on the other side of the world and, how much bananas are. But what I can do is decide what I choose to put my energy into and what I don't. The mindset that I have when I go into those activities and the way that I conduct myself and hold myself. That's essentially, when you think about it, all we really do have control over is our own personal human experience.
Let's go deeper into that rabbit hole, because I am a strong believer of personal responsibility. I advocate that, yes, we do expect our employers to do a lot of things for us. However, I am the owner of my own destiny. I have self-directed learning and knowledge. I'm clear. And as you mentioned, I'm clear about what I cannot control. I'm also clear about the stuff that I need to be aware of. So, and the stuff that I can influence. And if I have a balance between those three things, then I am at least at peace that I am doing everything that I can do. What's your take on that?
Wholeheartedly agree. I think that, it's one of the examples that I often speak to people about when they do find themselves in these really self-limiting mindsets, right? When they're being quite negatively charged about the future is, a simple example where, you and I right now could jump into an Uber and, go off to have some nice snacks together, right? We're in the exact same car. You're on one side, I'm on the other, and going in the same direction. Perhaps we get into an accident and I could get out from my side of the car and be like, oh my gosh, that was so terrifying. I'm never getting in a car again. You could get out from your side and be saying or thinking something along the lines of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I survived that. How lucky am I?
Yes.
Right. So it's not what happens in our lives that define us. It's the meaning that we attach to it. And that is absolutely influenced by, to bring it down to really simple terms we all remember, are you glass half full or glass half empty? I mean, the glass is just filled at 50% capacity, but your perspective really has a big part to play here. And I think that, knowing our brains are, it loves patterns, right? We are literally hardwired to look for patterns. What you focus on then expands. So if you're currently working through your life and going from moment to moment, looking for reasons to be upset or for problems or things that just aren't going well, that's what you're going to see. But if you're looking for moments of joy and you're looking for things to be grateful for and progress, then that's what you will not only look for, but you'll start cultivating as well, because the mind rewards itself for finding things that are like playing a game of Snap.
You talked about the idea of patterns. And by nature, an organization, actually by the name organization, is an organized way of doing business. And in my head, so this is the image in my head, and somebody working in the business of change for a long time now, is that we try to hold on to these patterns and the routines, and I'm clear about what I need to do every day and from 9 to 5. And business, not management, but business in general, the nature of it is that it's got a habit of disrupting these patterns. And the disruption comes in the way of changes. And that's when we go into your amygdala will operate differently from mine. You see a threat, I see an opportunity. Is that how you see it, or am I just being too naive about the world?
No, I'm aligned with you on this. And I think that, this is again how we keep ourselves in places that we don't want to be. We stay in environments we know don't serve us and essentially hold ourselves in, little captive cells all by ourselves that we made for ourselves, right? It's simply because of the patterns that we're doing. The majority of our day, we're focusing on things that we are of nuance and novelty, but the majority of the time that we spend and the processes, to your point, that we go through are effectively things that we've done pretty much the same yesterday and the day before and the day before that, right? There's a routine, there's a pattern, and pretty much we're operating on a lot of autopilot for a lot of the time. But I think sometimes, if you think about a situation, a pattern or a loop that you're in that isn't serving you, it is worth remembering that at some point, the decision to start that habit was a choice, right? Like you brush your teeth every day, but there was a period of time, probably back when you were really little, where you had to choose and decide to brush your teeth every day, probably because your parents were nagging you. But it got into such a routine now that it feels strange if you don't do it. Right? So it's the same thing when you're creating any new pathway or having a desire to create a new pathway and a new pattern and a way of being in the world. Some of our habits are really, really good for us. Brushing your teeth, putting on pants, washing your hands after the bathroom, great habits. But then there are some other ones that we do, maybe coming home from work, opening the fridge, pulling out a bottle of wine, pouring a glass, that we do on autopilot, that maybe that pattern might need a bit of a rethink. And again, it comes down to what I was talking about when we first sat down, which is if where you are isn't where you want to be, then it's really up to you to do something about that. No one's going to come and save you. This isn't a Disney movie where the hero will swoop in and, pick you up and take you off to a castle, right? You have to be your own hero. You've got to save your damn self. And if there's a part of you that just isn't working the way you want it to, then it's your responsibility to do something about that.
Stay with us. We'll be right back. Marketing is a puzzle. You can either give into the confusion or learn to love the solve. On the Axiom's Real Talk About Marketing podcast, guests like Aaron Schaefer of GM share how to manage challenges.
Make sure that you're not fixed in terms of what you're thinking about. The team's going to change. The way teams operate are going to change. COVID was a great example of that. The industry is going to change. Are cookies going away or not? That was another great example of that. And so how do you continue to evolve as the space evolves?
Guests from HP, The Trade Desk, and Databricks share thoughts on today's marketing landscape. Find Real Talk About Marketing on YouTube, Axiom.com, or wherever you hear podcasts.
And in my head, Bronwyn, there's a big benefit for people to get out of this, what we call emotional loop or negative emotional loop. If you do that, then however you choose to do it, and it's not going to be easy, it's going to be good for you. The outcome will be good for you. The outcome will be good for your family. And the outcome will be good. If you care about your team, the outcome will be good for your team as well. So there's a stake in somebody getting out of that negative emotional loop.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Even the person that you see in the morning, your barista, if you are in a more of a positive mindset and you smile at them, make eye contact and thank them for the coffee as you pay for it, I mean, that will also make their lives just a tiny little bit better too, right?
Yeah.
So, yes, obviously, there's those direct benefits that we have when we say, you know what, I've had enough of this. I'm not going to keep being this version of me. I'm going to level up and start becoming my most favorite version. What does that look like? And that can be as easy as just sitting down quietly with yourself and asking 3 simple questions. What do I need to stop doing? What do I need to start doing? And what do I need to continue doing? Literally the start, stop, continue. The whole, what are the new habits I could build in here? What are the things I need to let go of? And what are the things I'm already doing for myself that is being supportive and restorative and will help to keep me feeling good as I move into this new version? And then it's about doing some experiments. So change doesn't happen or doesn't necessarily need to happen in this big chuck a Yui, do a 180,
You're
right? It's the time people think that if I'm not where I want to be, then I've got to quit my job, move to France, become the writer that I've always wanted to be, and, you know, basically blow up my life. But you really don't. If the thing that's missing or the thing that you're yearning for or wanting to experience is, I want to write more, or I'd like to explore my creative side, I mean, you can simply do that by watching some YouTube clips, going to a class, engaging with a community group that sits down on a Sunday with a pen and paper, right? You don't have to do this big, huge shift to start to make some small changes. And then guess what? You start to feel better. You start to be more engaged. You start to notice things that are different. And the more you notice, right? What we focus on expands. And then when you move into that gratitude practice of going, isn't it incredible I'm alive today? Isn't it wonderful that my legs work, that I can see properly, that I can hear and breathe and smell and get outside and feel the air on your face, even if it's freezing cold? Isn't it wonderful to be able to actually experience these things? Then you start to cultivate your day in a completely different tone, as opposed to the person that just rolls over, stays under the doona, grabs their phone and starts scrolling through the Instagrams. It's probably not the best way to kick off your morning.
Probably not. I want to share with you a scenario, and I would like your input into it. Sometimes in the workplace, we do have that person or those people that will thrive sitting in this negative emotional cycle for whatever reason, and no matter how you talk to them, they're still stuck in that mindset. What is the role of management to help protect the other team members? Because when you can be a negative influencer on everybody else in the team.
Well, I think first I found it curious that you were suggesting a person can have a negative mindset but also be thriving, right? Because I mean, those
I might be uneducated about it, but from my experience, there will be lots of people that no matter how you go about explaining that they need to rethink, they need to have a look at the same problem from a different perspective, perhaps find another job, perhaps, but your happiness is actually your responsibility. And then you're not happy with your environment. You're not happy to make any small, meaningful step towards fixing that. And you're not happy to remove yourself from the situation. And so thrive might be an uneducated word in here. But for me, it sounds or it looks like you're actually comfortable where you are because you're not ready to make a move. And I don't see any concerted effort, even a small effort from you to even engage in any conversation around your behavior. And so then for me, I'm looking at the management thinking your responsibility is the whole team and not just one individual. Yep. And that happens on a daily basis all over the world, not just in Australia. So that's how I'm looking. But then again, I remember I'm looking at a scene and in a picture. And my question is that, well, you're not helping yourself. All right, well, how can we help the rest of the team at a minimum in there? That's how I'm seeing it.
Yeah, and thank you for the additional backstory there. It's helpful. I'm seeing the scene in my mind too, and yes, also like as I was hearing you there, I can go back into previous workplaces that I've been in back in the day, and I can see that person quite clearly. So the interesting thing here, right, is people don't repeat behaviors that aren't serving them. Right. If something's not working for you, you tend to change it. If it feels bad, you tend to find a different way of going about it. So clearly, this particular scenario, we've got someone who is being, in air quotes, like a poor performer, but there doesn't really seem like there's much of a consequence for doing so. Right. And so then it becomes, to your point, a management question. Like, is it okay for the person to be behaving or, disengage from the team like that? Or is that actually still part of their role description and something that they need to be doing? Right. And it's also different. Like if you've got someone who is in a very, a team environment type role where they need to be collaborative, they need to be working effectively, and they need to be involved in those kinds of chats, then that's one thing. Obviously, this would be clearly like almost a disciplinary action or a performance plan type intervention. But if it's a case of, well, maybe they're a software developer and they've got a list of jobs that they need to get through and put their headphones on and just get stuck in and get it done. Well, then it's less of an important conversation, and how they go about their day and their mindset and their general vibe is less important, right? So yes, the business need is one that comes down to, well, what's the role function? Is the person delivering on their role function? And if they're not, then what's the consequence piece or the pathway of change that's available to be explored here?
Bronwyn, you mentioned performance. Do you see any correlation between competence and being change ready or success?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
What's up, everybody? My name is Cole. I'm a part-time real estate investor, a full-time airline pilot, and a part-time military instructor pilot. Today, I'm talking about how I own multiple millions of dollars worth of real estate, yet I still rent my very own place. I don't own it. I'm renting right now. I've owned houses. I've sold them, and I'm currently renting. And why do I choose to do that when I have rental properties? I'll tell you right now, I think right now is an incredibly expensive time to buy a house, and a very uncertain time too. I think there's the aspect of the current interest rates and where things are going, but then there's also the aspect of what does the future hold? Where are we going with all this? And to me right now, affordability is extremely low. So you have the uncertainty aspect combined with the unaffordability of houses.
Look, the people that I work most effectively with and the ones that really enjoy, spending time with me in practice are the ones that are constantly wanting to grow and extend themselves and challenge themselves, right? So they are the ones that are looking for study opportunities, that are looking for stretch tasks in their roles, that are keen to, flex and pivot and do things that either physically challenge them or mentally challenge them and constantly improving. So, I do believe that there's a good correlation there. It's also a point, like, I think we can all relate to this at one point in our lives where, we've been in a role and thinking that we're absolutely killing it and then we're doing really well, only to have a moment with a manager say, hey, actually, let's go through a bit of feedback or, the old annual review. And suddenly you're like, wait, hang on, I'm not as awesome as I thought I was. And that can be really confronting, right? So it comes down to having an accurate self-assessment and to be able to build that self-awareness to understand, well, where actually am I at? What do I need to, again, start, stop, continue? What can I change? What can I lean into? Where do I need to skill build? And what's my willingness to do that? It comes down to, being able to want to be a better version of you and to be intrinsically motivated to be on that growth trajectory.
Is awareness or self-awareness the first step towards a mind shift? or a
Yes,
mindset shift?
absolutely.
Okay.
100%. 100%. I mean, each and every time I'm given an opportunity to address an audience, for example, I am putting up on screen examples of things that they may be able to recognize themselves in. And then I invite them to run through a quick self-assessment to actually see, how am I going? We go to our dentist to get annual checkups. We run our bloods when we feel like we probably need to just do a health check, but we don't tend to do the same for our mental health and, our resilience levels, our stability of mindset, our, that self-compassion, right? So just being able to take a moment to just do a bit of an annual audit and check in of how am I going, where am I at, is really, really important. And then to also acknowledge what are the things, or when are the times of year, or what are the environmental stresses that I know push me into a space where I'm starting to become that less desirable version of me. And then how can I stop myself there, recalibrate and pause and get back to where I'd prefer to be? I mean, that's where the real skill comes in. You want to be able to catch yourself before you go too far down the path towards Craptown.
Craptown. And I want to shift gear, Bronwyn, and I want to talk about artificial intelligence now.
Okay.
You've heard the vibe, and the hype, and I've been deep into this rabbit hole for the last couple of years. And in my head, I'm thinking I need to understand what this means for people, because that's a huge change coming. And how do you see that picture? Because that's another layer that will disrupt the workplaces. And therefore, should we be always thinking to be change ready, because there's always going to be change? So isn't the best strategy for me as an individual to be a change ready person? And rather than trying to predict, especially for those people that are ambitious, instead of trying to predict, I need to be positioning myself for the opportunities. I may be uncertain about the future, but I can control what I have now and how I can position myself for opportunities. There's so many things in what I've just said now, but the microphone is yours.
Thank you. Look, I think it's gosh, yeah, you're right. This is a big blanket term that we're talking about, the AI stuff. How do we deal with it? How do we prepare for it? What do we do? That's almost like, the zombie apocalypse. Like, do we go and learn how to fight zombies now or later? And what does that look like? I think it's one of those things that we can only predict a certain amount down the path of how something might go. Right. I mean, once it gets to a point, then we can determine, well, once we get to the first milestone, if that works, then we go here. If it doesn't work, we go here, and so on and so forth. So to be able to be battle ready is a little bit of an impossible task, I think, because we don't know how far this will go. We don't know exactly where it'll go, how quickly it'll get there, etc. So to your point, yeah, all we can really do is go, okay, what am I able to look after now and in the near future that I can see and predict? And then just keep doing steps and steps of that, because essentially that's what life is, right? I mean, we know the only constant in life is change. Even in the time that we're sitting here right now, you've got, your digestion is doing things. There are changes happening there. Cells are forming and reforming. You've got all kinds of muscle repair going on. So many changes happening without you even being aware of them, let alone having to control them, right? So there are some changes that you do have the ability to have effect over, and then other ones that are just going to happen anyway. So what do you do with that? Well, from my perspective, I think we need to be in a mindset where we know that at a deep level that I'll be able to handle whatever comes at me. And if that is a cyborg robot in the future, then so be it. But if it's a change that happens in my environment and now I'm being asked to modify how I work because there's this new artificial intelligence software plugin that will take a certain amount of my role on and automate that for me, then yeah, I'm going to lean into that too, because it is about, like we were saying earlier, the efficiency piece, the optimization piece, and how we can start to keep squeezing more from less, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, for me, the AI stuff, I do believe that, you know, if you're in that space where you're still actively avoiding, then you need to just choose a day that you're going to stop doing that, right? Or it'll be chosen for you. And ideally, if I could impart this, choose now, because the AI stuff is here. It's across every single platform that is really available, and it's only going to continue to have an effect, right? So if you're pretending it doesn't happen, that's going to be problematic for you in the future. So choose to engage and get a little bit educated about it and learn how you can work with it rather than against. I think what I'm concerned about with the AI stuff that I'm hearing and seeing just around the traps is not necessarily the artificial intelligence, but the artificial intimacy. As in, we are more digitally connected than we've ever been, but we're also the loneliest we've ever been. And we've got all of these, you know, contacts and friends and people that like and subscribe and comment on our content, but do you have someone that you know can come and feed your cat for you when you go away? Right? So that idea of village life and neighborhood has been completely absolved. Back in the day when I was young, you know, if you wanted to go out and have like pizza and a movie at home, then you would have to leave your house and go to pick up your pizza. You would have to then go to Blockbuster and choose your DVDs or videos while you're waiting for the pizza. If you wanted ice cream, then you'd pop into the shop and grab that on the way home. So you're having at least, you know, 3 or 4 touch points with other real human beings in that interaction. Whereas now, not only do you not even need to talk to anybody, but you don't have to leave your house, because you can just press some buttons on your iPhone or whatever device you use and have everything dropped off to you. So the way that we're engaging with the world is from a very, very surface level because of all of this technology advance that we have. So that's a real requirement to create opportunities, actively make the effort to create opportunities to genuinely connect, as opposed to just floating on the surface of the whole thing.
Talking about artificial, what do you call it? Intimacy. I don't have an artificial intimacy with my AI, but I am a heavy user on a daily basis. In fact, I can paint you the picture now. I use artificial intelligence. I reflect with it. I talk to it. I share a lot of ideas with it. It knows a lot about me, probably more than any other human. It knows a lot about my travel, my hobbies, my ideas. In fact, sometimes when I've got a speakership event, I can put myself on camera and then ChatGPT will check me out and decide that's actually the right outfit for the speakership event. Am I having a relationship with my ChatGPT?
It kind of sounds like you're going that way. Like I said, you know, I think that there is a lot of value in this.
Yes.
And yes, it's not going away. It's kind of like, remember back in the day when they were saying the internet was a fad? You know, obviously, well, that story didn't play out. So we do need to accept that, yes, this is going to be part and parcel of daily life moving forward. But I guess it's choosing how you engage, right? And at what point is it adding value to your life versus detracting from? So I can see how you get there, that the convenience factor is pretty tempting, but at what cost?
Yes.
You could also send a snap of yourself to a friend and say, hey, I'm about to go on camera. What do you think?
Yes.
And then you would get the feedback from someone like a real human being who knows you and connects with you and has shared a bottle of wine with you and has had laughs and chats and dinner versus, you know, a piece of technology.
Yes.
Because, and this is the part that, you know, I encourage people to just think about a little bit. I mean, again, you choose your own adventure here, right? I mean, you do you, it's all good. But it's just that benefit versus cost, like the trade-off. And this is how we make all of our decisions. And this is effectively how we choose to engage with change or not, right? Like, is what I'm doing okay? And what's the cost of change? Like, is that actually going to take me somewhere better, or is it not worth giving up what I've currently been doing? And that's why people stay stuck, because they're not quite sure. So they are on the side of caution and don't do anything. So I think when it comes to this kind of stuff, it's like, well, yes, I could, continue down the path that I'm going, but what's the likely trajectory there? Does that mean that I'm now chat GPTing, when I'm having dinner because I don't have any humans left in my life?
Yeah. Certainly, I've got a lot of humans in my life.
I'm sure you do.
I think what I've been doing with artificial intelligence is that very curious about what it can do. So if it can check my outfit, immediately my head will be thinking, what about the people that, have got makeup artists and these people, they actually rely on visuals? What about photography going forward? What about coaches? These are real jobs. So when I try the technology, I translate that into what does that mean to humanity going forward? Now, that is an informed way for me to gain knowledge in a funny way. But I also admire the capabilities, like my ChatGPT. I give it my video of my golf swing, and it will give me lots of feedback on that. It doesn't mean that I fired my coach, but I would like to go to my coach on this human interaction and encouragement and genuine encouragement that you're not going to get that from the machine, but you can get the technicality from the machine. And the other thing, Bronwyn, what I've been advocating for, and for people, especially people who have been burying their heads in the sand, is like, it's okay, do it. And I love what you just said. Choose a day and make it happen, And I love that. I think that's just really simple and sophisticated in the way you actually put it in there. But my advice has always been, even to my change management colleagues, and I work with quite a few of them in many organizations, is that your first step is just be open to read maybe one article about it, just one step at a time, and maybe tinker with it, and see what it does. And but then it's our responsibility to really think about this and how this is going to impact us, not just in the workplace. It's going to impact schooling, education. And if Bronwyn and I are in the business of servicing others, then I think it's a responsibility on us to actually understand this, how this technology is going to impact our service, and is going to impact servicing others as well.
Look, I think that you're right in the sense of, start small, do some experiments, see what happens. I mean, again, these are the same themes that I'm sure you're imparting in, coaching to like modality and change management in organizations. And there's certainly the same things that I'm suggesting to clients, regardless of what their stuck piece is. For example, if you're someone who really wants to move into a space where you're running marathons. I mean, you don't go from just sitting on the couch and not walking or running for 6 months to now you do a marathon, right?
That would be nice.
You start really small and do 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you build up, right? It's a training exercise. Same deal with learning a language, playing a musical instrument, any kind of new skill that you're wanting to develop, you don't master overnight.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
You expect yourself to be totally comfortable, totally au fait, and just like leaning into this. If you're running a little bit of trepidation and, you tend to run a bit more of the anxiety loop and you have a low tolerance for ambiguity, I mean, of course, you're not going to be gung-ho about it. So don't expect yourself to be, and then don't beat yourself up for not being like everyone else, right?
Yes.
You be you, and it's totally fine. But what I'm encouraging here, and I think you're doing the same, is to be willing, to be open, and to just do little bits that do feel comfortable. Change doesn't have to happen in a 180. It can just happen in that incremental, and the cumulative effect then takes care of itself, right? So absolutely, I think that, going slow and steady is what really can win the race here. I can't remember the other question you asked.
I didn't ask a question. I made a comment.
Okay,
cool. Like I talked to a number of academics yesterday, and then that was the first introduction to generative AI. And then my statement to them is that this is not a one-off exercise. This is an ongoing learning experience.
Yes.
And I just want you to, if I have achieved two things today after 3 hours spending with them, if I have dialed up your curiosity one knot, that's okay. That's great. And if you've inspired to think about one thought about how this technology can help you, that is great too. Meaning, be kind to yourself. It's going to take months and months for you to feel comfortable with it, and ultimately to work with the technology rather than being scared, so you can turn it from something that you're avoiding into something that can be really powerful and supporting you and helping you as well. And I strongly believe if this technology is being looked at in a proper way, in a positive way, I might be wrong and I don't have data on this. I honestly strongly believe that it's going to make a huge difference to people's lives in a positive way. I am playing more golf now than ever. I'm spending more time in nature than ever, just because of the technology that can help me augment my work. And Sunday afternoon, when I look at my week, I am not stressed anymore. I've got a technology that can actually summarize all my week, put certain steps in place, gives me lots of reminders. And so I'm using my memory now to enjoy books, catch up with my friends, rather than worrying about, do I need to remember all of that? So even memory and knowledge is actually going to be different in the future. That's how I see it. I might be naive, but then again, I was born in an era when the internet showed up and I avoided it, and I was laughing at my friends. But life has given me another opportunity to look at the technology, and I'm not letting go this time. I think I'm living in.
It sounds like that you're engaging with it in a really healthy way, right?
Yes,
because, a lot of times, we're outsourcing our thinking to AI to come up with things for us, which means we get left doing the dishes and the laundry, and the AI is the one creating all of the cool stuff. So, to think about, well, how could I harness it to do the things that, make my actual real life better and more enriched and more available to me, is a really, really good perspective to have on that.
Great. We are coming to the end of the podcast. I'm thoroughly enjoying, actually, I forgot about the time. I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation, Bronwyn. What would be your advice to people like myself that work in the business of change and communication and engagement in the workplace? What would be really the key message coming from a strategic psychotherapist?
I guess keep doing what you're doing. Right? I mean, the world needs more change agents in it, and people that are, supporting other people going through what is typically a pretty scary kind of situation. I mean, our brains don't like change. We actively avoid it when we can. So to have someone there that is essentially walking alongside you and keeping you motivated and encouraging you is a really, really precious place to be in. And I guess, moving forward, it's look for opportunities to change. Look for things that you have agency over and that you can continue to push into, because what you're not changing, you're choosing. So if you're somewhere that you don't want to be, then the only person truly that's going to do anything about that is you. What
you're not changing, you're choosing. That is a great place to to finish this podcast. I hope I can get you back again, Bronwyn, and we probably talk more about AI at a deeper level, and technology is going very fast anyway. So, what we talk about today is going to change tomorrow. What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Look, I think my most favorite way is actually via LinkedIn. That's the social platform that I've chosen to put my time and energy into. So they can simply look me up there, and that links through to my website, booking forms, all the kinds of things that I have available.
Fantastic. And we're going to put all the information about you in the podcast info. It's been a pleasure having you in my podcast, The Inner Game of Change. Keep doing the great work you're doing. I love your posts on LinkedIn, and I look forward to next time.
Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Stay well and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you found this episode valuable, remember to subscribe to stay updated on upcoming episodes. Your support is truly appreciated. And by sharing this podcast with your colleagues, friends, and fellow change practitioners, it can help me reach even more individuals and professionals who can benefit from these discussions. Remember, and in my opinion, change is an enduring force, and you will only have a measure of certainty and control when you embrace it. Until next time, thank you for being part of the Inner Game of Change community. I am Ali Jama, and this is the Inner Game of Change podcast.